2 months ago, I was actually flipping through Power Friending by Amber MacArthur once again, and I found that as far as it's a tech book, and it's built around the ideals of social networking, social media, digital media, everything that you wrote 4 years ago now still holds true and is extremely applicable. And it really starts with your ABCs. Can you explain to the audience what the ABCs are and why they're so vital in today's social space?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, I think during the time when I wrote the book, which as I mentioned was 2010, the ABCs that I talked about on a regular basis were authenticity, bravery, and creativity. And I don't think any of those have really changed. So let's start with authenticity. I think for law enforcement, I mean, there could be no better rule to adhere by when it comes to social media than being authentic, having that voice in the community. Bravery means trying new
In
things.
media relations, especially in this business. So, so why would we talk about transition planning? Well, like Tim said, we're now at this point, 3 or 4 years in, where a lot of our folks who have been in this, if you're in a standard law enforcement rotation, which maybe 3 or 4 years as a specialty rotation, a lot of departments use that.
Officers, we never know when the next high-profile, controversial incident is going to take place in our community. In the past, we would build relationships with the mainstream media, and then we would rely on the mainstream media. We would have to sit back and hope that they get the facts right, hope that their angle portrays our incident in a correct way. Well, with social media, we no longer have to.
I remember the very first time that my dad asked me as a 6-year-old boy to climb inside the washing machine, and he asked me to start taking parts out. And what he showed me was how all the different parts are interacting into the system as a whole. I've taken this approach into my teaching of police classes and writing department policy. And I think over the course of the next hour, you're going to see that that's just how I'm wired.
He watches videos all the time, whether it's on one of those subscription services or YouTube, but there's constantly videos. I have a 12-year-old daughter. She's constantly watching makeup how-to videos on YouTube. So YouTube has really become a way to get information. How many times in your personal life do you wonder how you're going to fix that leaky toilet or that socket on the wall that's loose? And you just put it into YouTube, and there's a video there to show you how to do it.
And remember, when you create a great online brand, you create a great offline brand as well. Your officers will be looked at in a different light and will reap the rewards you have done behind the scenes. When officers realize this, they start striving to uphold that brand's image. So let's do this. Let's rock your department. Let's make you awesome, and let's talk about branding.
The majority of what I want to talk about today falls into 4 categories. It's pretty much the concept of being able to better understand your audience, listen, communicate, and interact with your audience, both online and offline, in such a way that your audience really not only understands where you're coming from, but is able to share that and wants to share that with their audience as well. So imagine a world in a few years from now where everyone you meet and everything you do, every person you interact with, every company you talk to, every personal, professional organization you connect with, anything you do is automatically brought into your network. And it's not a question of friending or fanning or liking or following. There are some predictions, including mine, that say that within the next 3 years, the concept of friending, fanning, following, liking.
Which is, if you're a minor, forget it. You can't do it in public, and you can't walk around with it. So there are rules. We wanted to make sure that we engaged, the target audience, obviously, but also people who are interested in policy and how the state's biggest police department would react to.
However, being able to focus and to draw that line in the sand requires trust. If you're asking me to do this social business, if you're asking me to take on this digital front in law enforcement, then you have to believe that I can do it. Don't do as seagulls do, where they fly in, poop over everything, and then they just leave you there in its wake. Trust that
and it allowed us to tell a bigger story through social media. So we go back and look at this again. The role of the media: respond to events, gather information, interview witnesses, and report the facts. The role of the police: respond to events, gather information, interview witnesses, and report the facts. So we can turn it into one big event.
People almost always prefer crossed out social. Here at Mountain Wisely, we'll also talk about marketing, marketing your brand, getting your information and reaching people so that you can effectively gain followers and really successfully use social media. Where we start and knowing this contact info will be up at the end as well if you need to write it down.
Watch the video that the conference that they held, press conference that they held. It's a really, really great example. It's worth watching. And it's worth taking note of their strategy and finding a way to put that into your own crisis plan, crisis prevention, and your own strategy. Maybe even for Ebola. Good idea to look at that for. So part of you need to start before a crisis strikes is being prepared internally. So you have those three things of building trust, relationships, credibility. That is an active, continual thing that other awesome presenters within this conference are going to talk all about. I'm now going to talk about being prepared internally and what that looks like so that you can manage all of those crisis realities as well as get ahead of all of those major challenges we looked at the start of this discussion. So planning ahead. Excuse me. The very first step in planning ahead is to identify your audiences and your partners. And this may sound like I want to say duh.
And what I currently do with the Sheriff's Department. So let's move on. You know, it's funny how kids play games today, and you know, you have the Xbox 360, you got PlayStation, where they up to version 4 now, and it's kind of funny that, you know, the graphics get better as the systems evolve, and they get faster and graphics get better. Well, it always struck me as odd as how kids today, they're playing these online games. And I don't know how many are familiar with Roblox, but this is
okay. You know, today there's a lot of classes for social media for PIOs and other people involved in the community, but not as much unless you go maybe to the IACP conference that deals with law enforcement executives. So today I'm going to try to go through this presentation and hopefully give you a few items of